Philodo Falcon 60-volt e-bike here. This is the step over model. They have a step through as well. I'm gonna hit the roads, I'm gonna hit the trails, and if you stick around long enough, I'll do a range test and tell you how far I get on this from a big guy, so it's kind of a worst case scenario, so you know what you're really gonna get. But before we do that, what does this have? What's it all about? Well, half twist throttle, key right here, 7-speed shifter, up down shifter controls right here, controls for here for PIS levels and power, color screen, integrated battery, great cable management, headlight, tail light that can be turned on and off with a button right here, as well as a horn. Very comfortable, wide seat, rear rack, fat tire, big frame, dual shock with the center shock right here. So it's very comfortable, really connects you to the roads. Very fun e-bike. I don't know if I emphasize it in the video enough because I've already recorded the road segment. This is a fun e-bike. And you get a lot for the price. Very affordable e-bike for how much is going on. But let's hit the roads and let you know what this thing is really all about. First e-bike video review of the year. I am so pumped to be back out on the roads. I love doing this. The weather is fantastic. Feels so great to be out here. And I love what e-bikes allow you to do. Just get out, explore, go farther than you ever could with regular bikes. And today I have the Falcon 60 volt from Philodo. I've reviewed the H8 from Philodo, and it was a bike that reminded me of you get a lot, but not at a huge price. Because when you want more on these e-bikes, they can do a lot, but that price climbs right with them. And that was a bike that did a lot, but the price was affordable. Not the cheapest on the market by any stretch of the imagination, but it was still a very affordable price for what you got. And this to me is just a step up from that. I wasn't sure if they would follow it up, how special this would be. I am thoroughly enjoying it. We have a lot to talk about, so stay tuned. And as always, keep your attention on the screen because I'm gonna show a lot of tests I do. You know, how well does it accelerate up a hill? How well does it maintain its speed going into a steep hill? What's the top speed? You know, different things that we can do and that I don't wanna waste time talking about when I can just show you on screen as I talk about other things. So pay close attention. But I'm gonna start off with overall, just how does this bike feel? How does it ride? It is a fat tire e-bike, I believe 4-inch tires. So it's a big bike. It gets you up above everything. It's got some weight to it. I'll put that on screen. It's a lot of bike, but with the motors to support you, it really rides incredibly well. The big thing I'm noticing out of the gate on this bike is comfort. So it has the typical front fork suspension that most e-bikes do, but it also has an air shock in the middle. It also has a very wide seat, and that's gonna be personal preference. A lot of bikes have just that typical bike seat that you know, and they're great, and they ride just like a bike seat. But the thing is with these, is that the batteries on these things and the way they're built, they can go a long ways these days. You can really ride for a lot of miles, and those bike seats can get uncomfortable after a while. And this is a big old wide comfortable seat, and makes the ride enjoyable. There's a comfort level, but then there's also just how it feels on the seat. And this truly feels like a bike that you could just ride all day, go home, charge the battery, fall asleep excited to go ride more the next day. It feels like that. It's just a fun bike to be on, but it's got a lot more going on that we're gonna talk about. As far as controllability, how it feels, you know, I'm going real slow right now because I don't want wind noise in the microphone. It's very controllable. You know, obviously you're up in the air a little bit. There's a lot of weight to the bike, but I feel very, very in control. It rides very, very smooth, very connected to the road. Sometimes these e-bikes, depending on suspension and just how they're built, you end up feeling a little disconnected from the road. You know, hit a bump and it kind of makes you want to, you know, feel like you're shaking the handlebars. You just don't have that connection. This feels very connected, very in control, just very like, you just ride. You don't think about it much. You just enjoy it and you just ride and you explore and you take in the views. Very comfortable, very enjoyable bike. So from a ability just to maneuver this thing and just get out and go and feel like you've got it, no problems at all. Very, very much enjoying this bike. Some of the functionality that I'll talk about right out of the gate is I'm loving this color screen. The screens, you know, obviously not a deal breaker as far as, you know, what you want out of a bike, but when they are bright, you can see them. They got good details. You can see what's going on. And it has a little color to it, has some crispness to it. You know, it's easy just to see when you're riding in the sunlight. It's nice. I'm very much enjoying that. This is my first real ride. I did a quick little test just to make sure it was running good. But you can see I got 3 miles on this one. And so I haven't got range results yet, but I will run this till it's empty. And at the end of the video, tell you what the range was. So make sure you watch for the full video if you want to know that. brakes, I wasn't sure what to expect. It's a big bike, it's heavy, you know, they're not necessarily super upgraded brakes, and you don't want brakes that are poor on bikes that can get a high top speed, which this one can. And this brakes really well. I was surprised, and that's coming from a guy that weighs 220 pounds, has a lot to you know, put on an already heavy bike, and when you try to make it stop, you know, it needs to be able to really support you, and it does. And I've been on bikes that don't, and it doesn't feel great. Overall, I'm gonna say I'm very happy with the cleanliness of the bike too. Like, integrated battery, you know, a lot of bikes, they just strap on a battery to the outside, and it is what it is, and it helps keeps the cost down. But having it integrated and just part of the bike, it's so clean. The paint is so clean, but there's more to this bike than just that. It is a very powerful bike, or at least by the numbers. And I will say, my first go on this bike, I went to accelerate, and it was good. You know, it was comparable to other, you know, faster bikes that I'd been on. Not the fastest, but I was like, I really thought it more based on the numbers. I think this has got 5,000 peak wattage between the two motors, front and wheel tire. And it got up and went, it got me up to, I think it was like, I want to say 32 or 35 miles per hour on that first little test run I did. And I'm like, okay, that's good, but not as much power as I expected. And I was, you know, for all the upgrades this has versus the last Philodo I rode, I was expecting more. And I was starting to get disappointed. And I went back and read the instruction manual, and I realized they allow you to turn the front motor on and off, which I absolutely love. Because when that front motor is on, it's another power draw. And you don't always want that. To be honest, most of the time, the way you're cruising and just riding around and enjoying situations, you don't want that. You don't want that killing your battery. You don't need all that extra power every time you blip the throttle. You just want to be able to ride, and to be able to turn it off in most situations is great for so many reasons. But when you do want it on, and I don't know if you see a screen right now based on my angle, but I will show you later on a close-up. Right here, there's a little picture of a bike, and if I double tap the power button, it will fill in that front tire, and that activates the front. And boy, oh boy, does it change the power. It is there. When I really gun it, if I'm going slow, it will spin that front tire a little bit. You know, obviously you got to be on kind of some loose stuff. On the roads, that's not really going to spin, but it just shows you it's got the power there, and it completely changes the power profile on this. When you hit it, it will go. You just can feel it. You can definitely tell there's a big time difference in the power and the acceleration. Its ability to climb hills, its ability to get to a higher top end speed, a lot more power. Some other things that are worth noting, I've been on other bikes that have a lot of power, a lot of acceleration, top end speed, but they're built more solely for that, just the electric part. Which is great if you don't want to ride it like a regular bike. You want it to be more like a moped that's electric, and that's your use case, and that's awesome. I personally want a bike that's fast, but you could still get your exercise when you want. You can pedal with it, and this is a bike that does that. I'm up far enough that I can fully extend my legs as I pedal, and again, this coming from a 6'3" guy, so the ability to do that and still ride this as a bike, have it support me at 5 different PAS levels, 1 through 5. And let me have that control and support where I want. I'm very much enjoying the fact that I still have a powerful e-bike when I just want to throttle and go, but when I want to work together, or when I want to get exercise, or how I want to ride it, I have the flexibility to do that. All right, so I just completed the ghost pedaling test, and I'm gonna say at about 26 miles per hour, the ghost pedaling starts to creep in pretty heavy, and as it goes higher, it's almost completely there. And so at PAS levels 4 and 5, you're mostly ghost pedaling. It climbs past where there's any resistance in the pedals, and they're kind of just nothing there. You're just pedaling for the sake of pedaling with nothing behind it. And so if that was the only way to do it, that's a big negative, but it's not. If you go down to PAS levels 1, 2, or 3, that slows down the top speed that it supports you at. At PAS level 3, it was 24 miles per hour. And at that point, you're still riding along with it pretty well. You could tell it's definitely doing a lot of the work, but you're still riding along. You could definitely still get some exercise. It does not have turn signals. For a bike that goes this fast and you can go this far with, I really, really wish it had those. It's a knock for me these days with bikes that don't have those. So I will say that, but overall, the features and functionality are working really, really well. Another point I wanted to share, I've shown on screen, different tests I'm doing, but at top speed with my big old frame, again, 6'3", 220 pounds, if you're lighter, you're gonna be able to go faster. But I can get up full throttle, just hammering it and holding up top, letting all the wind hit me. I get up to about 41 miles per hour. And I do want to say that at that speed, some bikes can start to feel a little sketchy. You're just like, okay, I'm not on a motorcycle, I'm on an e-bike that's going really fast. And with this, it feels very good. Again, that word of connected to the road, like you feel in control, you don't feel like you're bouncing or one little mishap and you might go flying. You feel extremely in control, very connected, and that's very good to feel. So not only do you feel good at those speeds, you can also stop really well, so that's a positive. But I think I've covered everything I can think of at this point, so I'm gonna go off-roading and let you know what I think about that experience, so stay tuned for that. All right, moving on to the off-road section, but I have a couple points I want to make real quick. When I buy these e-bikes, because I do it for YouTube, I usually assume I'm going to sell them and try to get money back from them so I can buy the next e-bike and keep the reviews coming. In this case, I am actually thinking, what other e-bikes can I sell because I want to keep this? And I just want to make sure I point that out to let you know how much I've been enjoying this, because if you want a bike that pedals with you but has power, has traction, has ability to go anywhere, this bike is checking off so many boxes. I am thoroughly enjoying this, and it's to the point now where, like, when I want to go for a ride outside of doing YouTube, I'm more often than not picking this bike because I'm enjoying that much. And I just wanted to point that out because, you know, I think that kind of says a lot as someone that goes through a lot of e-bikes. This one's really marching up the list for me. Second, if you're looking at the footage, you notice I'm not wearing a helmet and you want to yell at me. I drove here this time, I hauled it in my truck, and I completely forgot my helmet. So that's on me. I normally do wear a helmet, so not a big deal there. But as far as off-roading, it kills it. We had a big old storm yesterday, so it is really muddy here. But these big old tires, the being lifted and up off the ground, the 2 tires worth of traction, having that front tire grip and push too, instead of just the rear one pushing you. It is really, really handling this well. Power-wise, I don't think I said this in the road section of the review, and I do kind of want to point it out. One thing I've noticed is that from a stop, there's not a lot of acceleration. And what I mean is, if you're not going and you jam that throttle, it doesn't just take off. It doesn't like, whoa, I gotta hold on. Which, depending on what you want, could be a pro or a con, because, you know, you don't want this thing throwing you off. You don't want it to feel dangerous. And that's why I'm pretty sure they just ramp down the power on takeoff. But if you really do just want that ultimate thrill, I want to go all the time, well, that might be a downer for you. But once you're at about 3 miles per hour, basically, if you're just rolling and you jam that throttle, it goes. And if you have both motors turned on, that front one will spin if you're going low speeds, depending on what kind of traction you're on, and then want to hook. So you do have to be a little careful. It's got some serious power when you activate both wheels. And because of that, as you watch right now, I'm going through, I mean, these are not trails. It's just, I'm just driving through stuff. I'm bouncing me all over. And that front tire is really helping pull me through it. I have no issues. It's handling everything perfectly. All the testing I've done while I'm getting footage and whatnot, it is doing great. So as far as if you're looking for a bike that has the capabilities of doing all the road stuff and the fun stuff, but if you want to, you can still take it off-road. Power for days, traction for days, up and above a lot of the junk that you might get into. And everything's holding up really well. I'm not having any issues. Nothing's breaking. Nothing's looking like it might be cheap. Honestly, if I were to summarize this before, I do have one last section. I'm going to get to the how far you can go on battery. I'm going to go home, fully charge it, and then hit the roads on single motor and see how far you can get. So we'll wrap up the video with that. But just to kind of wrap up this portion of the video, this bike for the price point is really just killing it. I mean, I would assume a bike with these capabilities and checking off all these boxes would be a lot more money. So very, very funny bike if this matches what you want. But let me go ahead and see how far you can get on a single battery, because that is a huge factor. If it can't go very far, what's the point? So I'll see you there. All right, range test completed. Got her back on the charger so I can ride her again, but made it 38 miles. That is with a heavy bike, a heavy dude, very strong winds, and no pedaling, straight throttle, full throttle the whole time, which is an absolute worst case scenario, 38 miles. If you improve upon any of those, you're gonna get a lot better range. If you pedal, you're gonna get far better range. So personally, I'm pretty happy with that. For an absolute worst case scenario, almost making it 40 miles, and knowing I could go a lot farther if I just worked with it a little bit and weren't going max speed the whole time, I thought that was pretty good. So as far as range, I was happy for what this bike is. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you could like and subscribe, it helps so much. Comment down below and let me know what you want to see in the future on this channel. But until next time, have a great one.